Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on X at Movies TV Mad and on Instagram and on Threads at Movies TV Mad X. A very warm welcome to Tuesday's edition of the Movies TV Mad Daily. Yes, well, that's a bit of a plot twist, isn't it? So everyone thought they knew what this movie was going to be. Everyone thought James Gunn's Superman was all about, Kingdom Come. And that S-Shield, all of a sudden, a bolt out of the blue yesterday after his Sunday roast dinner, James Gunn posts the original Action Comics #1 S-Shield. Was he just bored? Was he just posting a picture? Or is he trying to tell us something? Now, what I love about this is that all the people who thought they knew what this movie is going to be clearly don't know what this movie is going to be. They're just as much in the dark as the rest of us. But I do have my theories. Now, from the very beginning, when this film was called Superman Legacy, I said that this is probably going to be a multiversal movie. That it will celebrate different versions of Superman, that there could be different Supermen from the different eras of Superman history in this movie. I even thought this could be a Spider-Man No Way Home movie, where David Corenswet's Superman could kind of be mixing with other versions of Superman. Maybe Tom Welling, Henry Cavill, Brandon Routh, or maybe none of those actors, and just new actors, who are playing historical versions of this character. It could be anything. I mean, imagine this plot twist. If David Corenswet isn't actually the main Superman in this movie. Now, that's out there and probably not true, but what this picture proves is we know nothing about this movie. And it's interesting that a few weeks ago he was in a selfie with the relatives of Siegel and Schuster. Or was it just Siegel? I can't remember. But he's clearly wanting to celebrate the original Superman. He's clearly wanting to celebrate every Superman in history. And I'm not just talking about live action. I'm actually talking about the comics. So everyone has been doing fan art of the Kingdom Come S-Shield and costume, and David within that costume. But now people are starting to do fan art of this costume. I wouldn't get too carried away that he's now going to be wearing the original Action Comics #1 costume. It's what I've always wanted, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. Now, when he was asked ages ago if the costume would reflect a comic book design, he said half inspired by different versions of the comics and kind of a new interpretation of the Superman costume. Everyone's waiting with bated breath to see, David Corenswet in the costume. But now we really don't know what S-Shield he's going to be wearing. He can't wear them all. Or can he? Here's a deeper dive. A few weeks ago, we heard rumours of Bizarro Superman, of Ultraman, also played by David Corenswet. Could David Corenswet be playing all these different versions in Superman history? That would be a very ambitious thing to do. Something I'm not necessarily opposed to. But James Gunn posting that original Superman S-Shield, that original Action Comics #1 insignia, has changed the game and has changed the thinking. I'm very excited to see all the different theories on this. But my theory stands that we're going to see different versions of Superman in this film. We also don't know the plot of this film. Maybe Lex Luthor is going to clone different versions of Superman. That will be an interesting way of doing it. I absolutely feel that Lex Luthor, well, according to James Gunn, from his very words, that Lex Luthor is the main villain of this Superman movie. And a few weeks ago, I said, oh, that's disappointing because you've got all these different brilliant, iconic Superman villains and we're going with Lex Luthor again. But maybe this is a more interesting Lex Luthor because we've never really seen in modern day live action Lex Luthor as the mad scientist he originally was in the comics, and that makes him a little bit more interesting because we've seen the billionaire in live action in the form of Michael Rosenbaum's Lex Luthor. We've seen that in the comics. And I think we've seen so many different versions of Lex in live action, but we've never seen the mad scientist. James has hinted in pictures of Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor with a few kind of implements that hint he's going to be a mad scientist in this movie. I think that's a very good idea because it's a version of Lex we've really never seen in modern day live action. We've seen him delving into experiments. Even in Smallville, he was working with scientists and experimenting on red K and green K and black K and all of that. So he has delved into the sciences before, into the experiments, but he's never really in live action been a mad scientist. Not the modern day 21st century live action that anyone can remember. And I think if you are going to do Lex, if you are going to make him relatable, I don't think you make him relatable as kind of this Nazi type billionaire that hates Superman because he's an alien, which he always has. He sees him as a big threat. He probably still is going to hate Superman and see him as a threat, but as a mad scientist, he could see him as someone he could take advantage of scientifically if he steals his DNA. So it's very clear that what James Gunn is doing here is something that's never been done. And it's the reveal of this insignia that tells us a lot more than we ever thought. Because, the more information or hints that James Gunn gives us, the more interesting this film seems. And with him revealing this insignia, it's very, very interesting. And it's been, he's hit the fandom for 6 because people weren't expecting this. He's been hinting the Kingdom Come S-Shield for a very, very long time. He's been hinting Kingdom Come for a very long time. That could be one version of Superman of many we're getting in this movie. And with the rumours a few weeks ago of David Corenswet playing a Bizarro, an Ultraman, or whatever, it could mean that we see different versions of Superman played by David Corenswet. As I said earlier, this is a very interesting idea. And really typical James Gunn, because it changes the narrative of what we're going to get. So, yeah, I think this is very exciting. Of course, I'm surprised we got that insignia because it is interesting in a way because he could have actually revealed this insignia on Superman Day, which would have wouldn't have surprised people. It wouldn't have got people thinking because it's the insignia, it's the S-Shield you would post as celebration on Superman Day. But he didn't do that because he didn't want to confuse it. So I don't think he's posting this as to say, oh, look at this S-Shield. It's from Action Comics #1, isn't it great? No, he ain't doing that. He's posting it as a tease, then keeping silent, then enjoying people's reactions and everyone's theories about it. So, yeah, it kind of confuses what this movie is actually going to be. But I've always said from the very beginning that this could be a multiversal Superman movie. And this really does clarify what I've been talking about from the very beginning. My theory my methods to my madness could be wrong. But I think it's clear we're going to have at least one, maybe more, or a multitude of different versions of Superman in this movie. I think that's clear now. Because even when those rumours were coming out and he said, don't believe anything unless they come from me, he didn't exactly say, no, there's only one Superman in this movie, as many people have already said. He didn't directly deny that rumour. He said, look, I don't know where this stuff is coming from. Don't believe anything unless it comes from me. That's very, very different, of course. But, you know, it is an interesting situation. I said a few weeks ago, I don't think marketing Superman on the Kingdom Come S Shield is a good idea. Because it's okay, as I said, you know, it's okay for us because we know our stuff, we know our Superman history mostly. I don't know all of it. There's things I don't know, of course. It's all right for us to see the Kingdom Come S Shield. It's exciting. But for a normie, they're looking at that S Shield and they're going, why aren't you using the traditional one? The one that's recognisable. The one on Christopher Reeve's chest. The one on comic books chest. The one that's more recognisable to the normies. So now we have a very, very interesting situation where he's revealed another S Shield. And so what does this actually mean? I still think that the Kingdom Come S Shield will play a part in this movie, but it's clearly not the only Superman design we're going to see. It's not the only version of Superman we're going to see. So it's clear to me that we're going to get more than one version of Superman in this movie. And I think that's different. I think that's exciting. And I can't wait to see what we get. As I said, I also think it's exciting if we do get, and I think we will, a mad scientist, Lex Luthor, because it's a challenge to Nicholas Hoult as well as an actor. I can imagine him playing a mad scientist of Lex Luthor. I can't really imagine Nicholas Hoult playing the billionaire Lex Luthor, the Michael Rosenbaum version of Lex Luthor. But I can see him playing this version. If it is a multiversal movie, we could be seeing more than one version of Lex Luthor, which means there's still an opportunity for Michael to be involved. I don't know. I don't know if we're going multiversal, if Nicholas Holt's Lex Luthor as a mad scientist clones a multitude of versions, some that don't work and some that do, clones of Superman. And if we're going cloning, then I think we could get a Superboy, a Connor Kent, in this movie as well. Because one thing's for sure, James Gunn isn't revealing all his cards. I think he's right not to reveal all his cards. I think it's important and exciting that we don't know what's going to happen to this movie. Now, there's been a lot of rumours. I think a lot of these rumours are bullshit and some of them are true. And it's very difficult to know which ones are true or not. I think it's true that there's some war going on that Superman's going to get involved with, or, you know, dividing the world and whether he should get involved in or not. I suppose it could be an analogy for the war in Ukraine, where some believe America shouldn't be spending their money on it and supporting it, and some think they should be. So I think there's some kind of war. Not in the Middle East anymore because of what's going on out there as well. So he moved that battle. So I think that's true. I think that David Corenswet will play more than one version of Superman. Maybe more than a second version. Could be a third, fourth, fifth version. This is a very kind of challenging role for David Corenswet. David is a very, very talented young actor, that's for sure. It's one thing to be playing Clark Kent and Superman, but to be playing a multitude of versions of this character in a movie would be very ambitious, not just for the actor, but in terms of VFX. So, you know, you have to perfect these visuals. Now, we'll get back to this in a minute. Now, the other day, James Gunn was asked about editing and VFX, and he clarified that situation and said, he was asked if he was doing any Peacemaker 2 work. He goes, not this weekend. editing, VFX, things like that, preparing stuff, right? For the upcoming weeks in the production of Superman. Someone asked him a deeper question. Why are you editing now? And he says, well, what he does is, once a scene is finished, he edits it, and they start the VFX work on each scene that's completed. So the fans said, why are you doing this? Why don't you wait to complete the movie? And he said, quite rightly, and I thought this was brilliant by James Gunn, he said, this is why you get a lot of bad VFX today, because it's all rushed. Well, once we complete a scene, if we edit it, and we work from scene to scene and refine the VFX, and we've got all this time to do it, that means we'll deliver you better VFX. This is brilliant. This is what we want. I like James in the sense that he calls out the problems with Hollywood today. And the rushing of VFX is a problem. The problem isn't the VFX artists themselves. They are used like the kids sent down to the coal mines. You've heard rumours before about films working on VFX a week before release, and that is true because a lot of directors edit the movie together, and what he's doing is, once the scene's completed, he's getting it edited, then they start work on the VFX. This gives the VFX artists more time. If you're making 100 shoes, right, you don't just wait for the 100 shoes to be ready before you paint them. You take each shoe, each pair of shoes, and you refine them, don't you? This is what they're doing. So this is a much better idea, and I like this because this film isn't being released till next July. It's over a year. But even so, that's no time to refine VFX. So actually they have to do it this way because, just over a year isn't a long time to finish a movie. That's very interesting. They haven't actually given themselves a lot of time. There's not a lot of space between making the film and its release because it takes time. You make the film, you write it, you shoot it, then you put it together, right? I love the complex kind of way movies are made where you shoot all these different scenes differently and you take the one piece and pull it as part of a film. It's like doing a jigsaw, isn't it? It's a fascinating process that I absolutely adore. But it's hard work. You see, the problem with the BTS in your physical media, it's glamorized the process of making television and film. There's nothing glamorous about filmmaking. Nothing. It's bloody hard work. And people talk about troubled productions. They're all troubled productions. All of them. Nobody really enjoys it until it's done and it's put together and they can enjoy it. Then you've got the stress of if an audience is going to enjoy it, if the critics are going to eat it alive or like it. That's the stress of making these things. And I think the problem is with BTS, you get all these outtakes and, all these kind of, gag reels and things like that. And it's all a fucking facade at the end of the day. It's a very difficult thing to do. There's nothing glamorous about making film and TV. As I say, it's very, very hard work. And that's the reality. But Hollywood have glamorized the whole process. And you get people on the internet thinking they could easily do a better job. Good luck with that. You wouldn't know whether to look left or right. So I like this idea of him taking a scene, editing it, then starting and refining the VFX. It's a good way to work, especially when you haven't given yourselves a lot of time to complete the movie before release. So we'll see the state of the film, when we get it. Because I don't think there's a lot of time between making the film and the release of the film. But this is the studio system. It's a conveyor belt. That's the problem with the Hollywood system. You can't fix the Hollywood system. It's there to make product and make money. You can't fix that. All you can do is move further out west and create something new. And create a system that gives back to its industry that's there for the art form, that works on a project, and maybe doesn't work for a project, work on a project for another 5 years, that takes the money that's been made from that movie and puts it into the next movie and makes sure it pays its bills and it pays its talent, its artists, its camera people, its stunt people, everyone what they deserve, and look after people and treat people like human beings rather than children sent down the coal mines. We need to think again. Smaller studios need to be created outside of the Hollywood system. Because when we look at the schedule of this movie, I don't like this schedule. And I know I've only just thought about the schedule of this movie. Next July. It's no time at all. It doesn't mean it's going to be a mess, that it won't work. But they haven't really given James and his team, long to make this movie. Because that is the studio system. It's a business, it's about profit, it's about loss, it's about product. It's not about art, it's not about making a film, it's about making money. And as I say, you can't change Hollywood. You will never change Hollywood. They hate outsiders telling them what to do. That's what they would be calling me, and that's what they call you. But I think if you want to create something a bit more, kind and compassionate, and there for the art form and to give back to the art form and treat people in the right way, you need to build something new outside of the Hollywood system. Now back to this, this Action Comics #1 Superman symbol. It is interesting because I don't think, will this be the main costume? I don't think so. I don't think so, the way he's been talking. I think it's definitely going to be one of many costumes. Now, it's interesting. There's another way that this could work, right? Think about this for a minute. Now, James Gunn told us that this Superman would have been Superman for about a year. What if that isn't true? What if Superman's been around for a very long time? Beyond our history, maybe since the 20s, right? I'm not saying this is true, but this is another way he could have different costumes. So maybe we get a flash forward at the beginning of the film when he's old. Actually, this is another way of doing it, right? Let's say he's not a Superman that started in the 20s. Let's say let me change my little theory actually. What if at the beginning of this film we get a flash forward to the long future where he's Kingdom Come Superman and he's wearing the Kingdom Come costume. And then we flash back to current day where he's wearing his modern day costume. But what we're seeing is different flashes from different parts of the future where he's wearing these costumes. Maybe when he first started, 6 months before the place we first see him, he's wearing Action Comics #1. Maybe we get some flash forwards of the different costumes that Superman makes. So there's plenty of ways that he could be wearing and plenty of reasons why he's wearing these different costumes. But it is very, very interesting. But I do think the posting of the Action Comics #1 is a hint rather than him trying to get kicks on a Sunday afternoon after his Sunday roast dinner. So it's very, very interesting. I would suppose before we get the costume reveal, which is going to be the big thing, I think we may get a few more hints and teases from James Gunn. A lot of people have questioned when we will get the costume reveal. I've always believed it will be at the end of principal photography, but who knows at this point. That tease could be a hint that we're getting the costume reveal any day now, but I've always believed it would be best served at the end of principal photography or at the beginning of principal photography. Well, he didn't reveal it at the beginning of principal photography. And so that's the $1 million question. Of course, just because we see him in one costume, it may not be the costume he'll be wearing. He could post a picture of David in a costume and say, one of many Superman costumes, and tease it like that, which means, I suppose it's less likely to be criticised if, you know, he could be wearing other costumes. It may not be the costume. Will it be the Kingdom Come costume? Which we're clearly going to see a version of in this movie. And so, yeah, it's a very interesting situation. So it's either we're getting a multiversal Superman with lots of different versions of Superman within the multiverse, or we're getting a Superman in the future as Kingdom Come. Then we go back in the ages with the different costume he's worn, and whatever his costume he's wearing in the modern day. So there's lots of different ways that James could be going at this, and I find that very, very interesting and exciting, because as I say, I've got the Christopher Reeve films, I've got the Snyder movies, I've got Man of Steel. I don't want a retread. I don't want to live within an echo chamber. I want a director to give their, you know, their definitive vision of Superman and who they believe that Superman is. And I think one thing we know for sure, James Gunn is doing his own thing. What we get, you know, is anyone's guess whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. We don't know. I keep on saying this. People saying it's going to be bad, it's going to be good. You don't know. You don't know. Maybe you want it to be good. Maybe you want it to be bad. That's different. You should just be honest. Say, I want it to be good, or I want it to be bad. But people don't do that. They project what they want in their predictions. I don't. I've always believed that we'll get more than one Superman in this movie, not because that's what I want, because it's a hunch. It's just a hunch. It's just a feeling that I've always had. And then with like the rumor about Ultraman and Bizarro, that kind of confirms that we get at least one or two more versions, different versions of this character, but it could be beyond that. I do believe, I've got a strong feeling, it has got to do something with mad scientist Lex Luthor cloning. As I say, I hope that means we also get a Connor Kent. Because we've seen teases of Connor Kent in live action. We've had him in Smallville. They did a good job with him on Smallville. We saw him, you know, we've seen him in Titans as well. We've seen him in animation. But for him to be part of a film universe, a Superman film universe, because I do feel that Gunn wants to build the Superman family. He wants to build the Batman family. The Batman situation is also very interesting. Now, we go back to the sweet dispensers, a multitude of sweet dispensers. That also hints that this movie and the DCU itself will be delving into the multiverse. Now, multiverse has been done. Some of it's been good and some of it's been bad. But I think it's interesting. I don't mind the multiverse, right? I don't think it's impossible. The multiverse is easier to do in comics than in live action. Some things, right, that are done in comics are easy to do in comics and not easy transferable in live action. And I think the multiverse is one of them. So maybe James Gunn will do that. There's also been a, you know, I mentioned this the other day, I think, I can't remember now, about the way that guy flew in Guardians 3. I forgot his name now, right? There's also James Gunn, I think David Cronsworth actually auditioned for that role as well. Now, a lot of people didn't like the flying that James Gunn used in Guardians Volume 3. But I don't think it's bad flying. It's just the way you wouldn't want Superman to fly. But James is very well aware, and he has confirmed that the VFX techniques are very different with Superman flying than they are in Guardians 3, which is a good thing. That knocks one of my theories out the way that maybe Superman won't fly in this movie. That, you know, maybe though, he doesn't fly to the end of the movie. But we will see. Or maybe one of the versions of Superman who's wearing this insignia doesn't fly because the original Superman jumped from skyscraper to skyscraper. So it could be we're celebrating a lot of different versions of Superman in history. So yeah, there's lots of different ways that this can happen. So this is certainly going to be a very, very different Superman movie. And as I say, that's a good thing. This is a big deal because Warner Brothers are making money now, right? Apart from the DCEU flops last year, Zaslav is making money for Warner Brothers. People, you know, having kittens because he's getting big bonuses and stuff. That's the way of the world. I wouldn't focus on it too much. If Superman is a hit for WB, James Gunn will go down as a legend.